Alright guys, so we're going to get into Rose here. So Rose has a new Hall of Trials exclusive equipment. There's the effects of it here. Now, one thing not to overlook is the speed. Rose is very common a combat readiness pusher slash buffer in all PvP combat, so 5 to 10 speed can make a very significant difference in your team, depending on if you're running her with a proper speed set. But we'll get into that later. So number one, if you choose number one on her exclusive equipment, or not choose, if you happen to get it, it'll activate defense buff as well as taunt. At least have a chance to activate both, which is actually pretty cool. And then two, Shield of Light. Shield of Light, what it basically does, it puts a barrier up. And you can basically give that to one ally, and you can also give it to Rose as well. And I believe it also removes 2 debuffs, so depending on what you got going on, that I actually see being more useful in PvE, which we'll get into a build for that later. And then Goddess of Victory, if you happen to get that one, with the skill upgrade, you can take her combat readiness ulti down to a 3-turn cooldown. It does combat readiness and attack buff for the entire party. We'll go ahead and get into her right now. Eureka! Alright, so like I said, attack and combat readiness, it can be soul burn to extend the attack duration to 1. This can be made a 4-turn cooldown, and you can upgrade it all the way to get the combat readiness up to 25%, which is actually recommended if you're going to run her in your PvP teams. This skill, like I said, it's more of a PvE skill for the most part because it's single target. You can get the exclusive equipment to make it Rose and the person that she's given this to. Dispel 2 debuffs, increase combat readiness, barrier strength proportional to her defense. And then her one, like I said, you can either increase her defense or provoke. Or both if you happen to have that exclusive artifact. That's more of a PvE thing as well. Damage proportional to defense. So if you run her PvP, definitely upgrade her 3 first. After that, you probably honestly don't even need to upgrade her. Most people that run her as a combat readiness booster, they don't invest in her more than her 3 and getting her like the basic gear. The gear you're going to want for her is speed, along with, it could be some type of mitigation thing. Defense would probably be the most common thing. But you could also get her, in case she doesn't go first, immunity, if that floats your boat. So, and then as far as artifacts to run on her, it depends what you're doing with her, but once again, if you're doing PvP, there's a couple choices. You could give her the Aris just so she eats up a little bit of damage from the enemy's AoE damage dealer or what have you. Otherwise, if you actually want her to survive a little bit, you can give her the Noble Oath here. Defense and effect resistance, the lower that the health goes. And then everything else is just kind of like niche. Like whenever someone gets hit, if he has Heal Lance, her combat readiness goes up. But honestly, beyond her first turn, he's not super useful in PvP. Now, PvE, it's kind of the same thing. Actually, one more thing I'll do for PvP. This one actually isn't too bad on her because most cleavers in PvP crit, so if you can decrease their damage by 16%, 8 to 16%, that's actually fairly solid. PvE though, Aris or Heal Lance will probably be, or Noble Oath honestly, will probably be your number one thing. Now you can do Ritual Sword. I would only recommend Ritual Sword for the counterattack if you're going to invest in her one, or her one exclusive equipment is the only thing that you manage to get, because that's going to both taunt, hopefully, and put a defense buff. So a good combo there if you're actually running her as a hard tank. She can be useful on Wyvern as well, but the issue is, because number one, you're going to use this skill to increase attack and then combat readiness, which is fine. And then if you're using on Wyvern 11, she can get rid of some debuffs before giving herself a barrier and more combat readiness. Not bad to help her survivability, and then her one, not only is it a taunt, but a defense buff. So, to be perfectly honest, PvE-wise, she is actually viable for Wyvern. You can run her in other scenarios, but she is most useful against single target stuff. She's not very good against heavy AoE for the most part. But if you are going to run her PvE, once again, I still recommend upgrading her 3 to max. And then at that point, you're probably actually going to want to upgrade her 1, assuming you're running the number 1 thing for the effect chance on her taunt to go to 75% base effect chance. And then barrier, you know, you can get this down to turn cooldown, but most people aren't going to invest that heavily in her, to be perfectly honest. If you're a new player, Shadow Rose is a bit superior to her. And that's pretty much it. As far as build for PvE goes, speed defense if you can afford it. Otherwise, defense, health, whatever you want to do there for her survivability. And that is pretty much it for Rose, guys. So, catch you guys later on. Have yourselves a great day.